be, but we expecting somebody there. So here we are. We have our guy, the expert, who's gonna break down those X's and O's. Gonna be looking at the film. All right, talking about the history and talking about the present. His presence here is a gift. Come on now, it is Boy Green meets Wudi.
Can you guys help us get a jet chant here? Yeah, going.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. Come on in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go!
J-E-T-S, Jets! Let's go! J-E-T-S, Jets! Let's go! There you go, Woody!
Third Party Thursday.
Chris joining us here on the program with a capital P here on the program.
Jake Asman, come on down. How you doing, good sir?
Wow, what an intro. I mean, Boy Green is known for having the intro, but Wudi, that was unreal, man. Thanks for the kind words, son.
We are men of many names.
My favorite Austrian Jets fan right there, baby.
Boy Green
meets Wudi. Welcome to another episode of Boy Green Meets Wudi. It is your boy James Wudi, and you already know we are Wudi, rocking everywhere. And right here, my guy, he out here almost doing the Macarena. That's not the Macarena, but it looked like it a little bit. He is the boy who became king. Hey, Macarena! None other than Mr. Paul Esden Jr., and the vibes are high. Do you know why? It's because we're about to speak with my guy. Come on now. The man, the myth, the legend. That's what I called him on Tuesday. That's what I'm calling him today. All right. He is here. He is back to talk defensive prospects from A to Z Sports. Come on now, Ryan Roberts. Come on down. Welcome back. How you doing?
I'm good, guys. I'm good. I don't know if you guys have this problem because I live in a very strange virtual world where this green screen, whenever I pop up a background, makes my internet go very slow. I don't know if this is a typical thing. So we are going full just green in the background, which I hope some Jets fans will appreciate, even though it's not exactly the Jets color of green, but it's better than seeing me froze up on your screen. So here we are, fellas.
Well, I appreciate that, Ryan. First off, I'm just going to assume you did that green just to set the mood, and the mood is right. So thank you. And this is the yin to the yang. We did an offensive episode on Tuesday, and it was awesome. We got a great fan response, especially Lou B. He appreciated all the Notre Dame stuff. That was especially nice. But here on Thursday, people say defense wins championships, and to Woody's point here, despite some rumors of the Jets considering other things at number 2 overall, perhaps a different show. The most prominent and prevalent things has been defense there at number 2, specifically an edge rusher. But if you want to expand it out to the front 7, there's been a lot of conversations. And I want to start here with you, Ryan, is that we're in a culture, and maybe it just is where we are, and I'm going super philosophical here, but that it's my guy or fuck your guy. That's just the combo. It's Arvell Reese. And not only is it Arvell Reese, it's screw David Bailey. He sucks. And the David Bailey people are like, David Bailey, Arvell Reese sucks. Or perhaps is there a third option where both guys are pretty good and the Jets are picking between 2 good options? Where do you stand, Ryan Roberts?
I mean, out of the 2 options that are the most likely that you hit on, Arvell Reese and David Bailey, I definitely have my preference, to be honest with you guys. I definitely do have the preference. But that does not mean necessarily that neither player, or it's not a boomer bust situation, in my opinion. It's actually the complete opposite. I think there's one player that does have somewhat of a boomer bust quality to them, and another guy's a little bit more safe, right? And it's interesting when you're talking about the Jets and where they are as a franchise just in general, because they are a team that doesn't have a quarterback of the future, that has holes on both sides of the football, that does need to rebuild this roster, and are obviously in they have an intention to do that with as much draft capital as they have over the next 2 years. So there's a lot of holes to fill, but I do think that they're an interesting one in terms of, are you more patient with this roster and do take that swing of an Arvell Reese that might be more of a year 2, year 3 breakout in terms of development as a 1-year starter coming out of Ohio State? Or do you want the guy that's a little bit more ready-made in what David Bailey is coming out of Texas Tech? It's a very unique conversation to have. I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer, but it is ultimately going to depend on what your ideology is and what your track is. Because, I mean, this Jets team's in a weird spot, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but, it feels like if Aaron Glenn has a horrible second year, that this might be another reset of like, let's figure this thing out in terms of who's leading the deal. But we know that the general manager is probably going to last beyond next season. So like, there's an interesting conversation of like the person building the roster and the person trying to utilize the roster to win games. And I don't know, man, it's just going to be an interesting ideology to see how they go, because I think that there's two different pathways to success, but the road is going to be much different depending on who you ultimately do pick with that second overall selection.
So maybe I missed it there in your word salad of a combination of talking that you do for a living. Did you reveal your preference?
My preference is Arvell Reese. It is. And this is full transparency. I typically do, as an evaluator, trend towards the ceiling. And I think that is Arvell Reese. And it is no disrespect to David Bailey at all. David Bailey ran 4.5 flat at the combine and just had a dynamic season for Texas Tech. He is not a low ceiling prospect. I wouldn't say that at all. And especially because, like, I think people don't talk about this enough, but at Stanford, he was kind of used as like pretty much just a designated pass rusher. And then when we went to Texas Tech, you saw him get a lot more opportunities to develop on early downs and his all around skill set. So I still think there's meat on the bone of development with David Bailey. But when I look at Arvell Reese, that guy can be as good as you allow him to be. It is the support that you put around him. And he's very interesting in the defense. And I know the Jets have a little bit more, and you know, I don't like to go too deep into like what the base defense is, but it sounds like there's going to be a little bit more 3-4 elements to what the Jets are trying to do. And when I watch Arvell Reese, I see LeVar Arrington. Like, that's who I see. And I think that if he is able to stay healthy and he's developed properly, that's a guy that first down, second down, you can play him on the second level as a stacked linebacker. Third down, you can utilize him anywhere from a rush perspective. I think that kid is a superstar if he's developed properly and there's support put around him.
Yeah. Well, that was a two-headed question Boy Green asked, and I thought it was a Cerberus. You know what I'm saying? I thought there was three heads on that. But you know, I'll hold off on that third name for right now. I'll focus on as a whole, right? And I think what we want, you know, what we're itching for, so to speak, is just pressure on that opposing QB. You know, I think that's a big reason behind the 0 picks for 17 games in the Aaron Glenn regime. So if we're talking just pure, you know, getting in the quarterback's face, who would you say is the purest prospect in this draft for just pure pass rush?
I mean, it's David Bailey if you're just talking strictly getting after the quarterback. Like, that's the only thing you're concerned about. And it's him. I mean, he has a dynamic first step. He's got great closing speed. You saw him, and I think it's important. The Big 12 was not littered with great NFL offensive linemen, but when you saw him go against Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano from Utah, and then you saw what he did against Oregon, for instance, in the college football playoff, you're like, I think that translates. Like, that, get off the football, right? Like, Ed Orgeron, I think, had like a quote one time, is like, if you can't get off the ball, you can't play. And David Bailey can certainly get off the football, and that matters a lot. And I think that when you're comparing him to other guys, and I'll even throw like Ruben Bain into the conversation for a second, right? Like, there are question marks for each of these players as a all-around football player, but I don't think many people have concerns of David Bailey as the pass rusher. Like, you think that he's going to at least be a pretty solid contributor in that department. Is Arvell Reese going to develop into a full-time pass rusher? Should he develop into a full-time pass rusher? That's an interesting conversation. Can Ruben Bain show that he is a guy that can move past his outlier, you know, size and profile and be a guy that could be a high-volume sack artist? I mean, that's a major question. I think David Bailey is the most easy solution to helping a pass rush from year one until, you know, whenever the end of his first contract is.
All right, well, you brought him up, not me. All right, if everyone's asking, go back to the tape, because we're about to talk about my guy. All right, this is the third head in the equation. To me, hey, if you had asked me February 1st, this was my pick. But of course, so many things have changed since then. Ruben Bain Jr., they're coming at him. Right, short arms, shortest arms in the world. But what I love about you and your approach, Ryan, is you rely on the film, right? You always say you look at the numbers to almost like double check your work in film. So tell me, what does the tape say? Is this guy a unicorn, or is he just about to be one of the rest, in your honest opinion?
It's a fascinating question because people throw out like the arm length conversation for anybody, offensive tackles, defensive ends, and it's just a very blanket statement of like, you know, this guy can't play for the short arms. And there's always another layer to it, right? Of like, why does it matter? We need to have that like very deep conversation at some points with these players is like, why does it matter? For Ruben Bain, it's interesting because I do think that you saw in 2025, he started off the year in a really good spot. Like he played really well against Notre Dame and had a couple really good early games. Then he kind of like leveled off for like 6 weeks where it was just like he wasn't incredibly impactful. And then he turned it back on for the college football playoffs and he played well down the stretch of the season. So it was a little bit more of a up and down year than I think some people will kind of portray it as. Like it was not dominant from start to finish. Like it wasn't. And whenever you have peaks and valleys as a prospect, you need to ask, what are the reasons for that? And I'm going to get to like the historical context of Ruben Bain in a second. But when I watch Ruben Bain, I admittedly am a little worried about him being a high volume sack artist on the NFL level. I think that he will be a good NFL player because he plays incredibly violently in the run game. He's super physical and he's relentless. Like he's not a boomer bust prospect to me, which some people will paint him as. Like he'll be like, he's either going to be the best player in the draft or he's going to suck. Like I don't think the floor is that low. Like I think he's going to be a good NFL player. But the conversation that I think we need to have is if you're drafting a guy at number 2 overall, a defensive end, you want him to finish plays. And when you look at Ruben Bain, he had a low pressure to sack rate this year, which basically means he's creating pressure but not getting quarterbacks on the ground. And he had a high missed tackle percentage. He had I think it was like a 20% missed tackle percentage this year or something like that, right? Where it's like he's not finishing plays. Well, why is he not finishing plays? One part is the lack of length that he has, wingspan and arm length. He has a smaller tackle radius to be able to work in pursuit and to finish plays in that way. And I also don't think he has great closing speed. So like those things, two things combined, I do think limit him as a pass rusher. Again, floor is still high though, but I do think that if you're expecting him to come in and be a 10 to 15 sack a year guy, which should be the expectation for a guy that you're drafting number 2 overall as a defensive end, I do think he's going to leave something to be desired in that department. I think he's a little bit more of a solid sack guy, but high volume run game guy in terms of his penetration and run stops and all that type of stuff. Like I think he's going to be a very high floor player. But when you look at a valuation, right? Not the evaluation for a second, the valuation of this type of player since 1999, mock draftable and doing all that type of stuff. Here are the list of guys with sub 31 inch arms that have had a 10 sack season in the NFL. That's it. That's the list. It doesn't exist. It's just not there. You have, it just isn't, man. You have to get to like 31 and a half inches. I know people are like, oh, are we really doing that with like a little more than a half an inch of arm length? Well, when these people are investing millions of dollars into it, when I say that stat that I just said, they're going to go, man, I am betting on the most outlier of historical outliers. There is no proof of concept that type of player, that body type, that profile wins in the NFL. There's just no data to suggest that it happens. So I think we need to move past the boomer bust label of Ruben Bain. Again, I think he's a high floor player that maybe has a limited ceiling in terms of his pass rush profile, but he's going to be a good player in the NFL. I just personally, my opinion, I wouldn't draft him 2nd overall, and I actually think that there's a chance that he could fall out of the top 10 because I do think there's more concerns than some people in the media space are kind of letting on around the league.
See, that's the thing. And again, this is a very different comparison, but same in the sense of historical outlierness, is that Bryce Young, when you said, wow, this combination of everything has happened, never. And then you're like, do I, with the number 1 overall pick, want to be the first team ever? I mean, I could be right if I'm that team, but I could be very wrong. And, you know, on the same thing, when you give that list about Ruben Bain, you could be right. But if you're going against history and consensus to that degree. You better be right or you're going to be fired. So like, maybe that sounds super extreme, but that's the one bugaboo. Because again, the same thing to Wudi. If you would have, the old turkey, let me shove this temperature gauge in right after the national championship game. I was a Bane guy. Bane, let's go. I was doing Batman Bane jokes on social media. I was all in. And now on April 7th, I'm going to be all out.
It's just such a fascinating conversation. And unfortunately, as you guys know, some people don't want to hear it. It's like, they just don't want to hear this. Go back to the film. It's like, guys, we can have a grown-up conversation about this. I promise. Like, it's okay. You can still be a Ruben Bane fan after I put out some of the information in my opinion out there. I am not right yet. You are not right yet. We will not know for 2 to 3 years of who exactly was right about Ruben Bane or not. And again, like, this is me saying in this draft that I think lacks blue chips up top and just depth up top in general, I'm totally fine with Ruben Bane going in the first round. This isn't me saying like that guy should not get drafted. Like, he's still a first rounder. I just don't think he's number 2 overall. Like, that's just kind of where I struggle with a player like Ruben Bane. So if anybody out there though is very adamant, I don't care about measurables, I would draft that kid number 2 overall. That is totally fine. But just know that this is an outlier bet, and outlier has a negative connotation to it. But there are certainly players that are historical outliers in the good sense, right? Like Drew Brees was a very undersized quarterback for the position. People point out like Brandon Graham in terms of like him being an outlier in terms of his arm length. And like, certainly, yes, there are positive outliers out there. Just know that the number 2 overall selection, if the Jets decide to go that way, which again, I don't think, I would actually be kind of shocked if they do. But if they do, they're investing in a player that there is no proof that he can be successful in the NFL. Perhaps he is if he defies the odds and he is a great story in that department, it's always possible. But I do think that is a tough bet to make when you are a team that is desperate for impact talent, like desperate. You need defensive ends, you need corners, you probably need a stacked linebacker, you need a quarterback, you need wide receivers outside of Garrett Wilson. Like, you need players, and to have the number 2 overall pick, you need to make sure that guy hits. And I just think that betting on outliers is kind of how you get yourself in trouble a little bit. 2
things here real quick. Besides all those things you listed, we're operating pretty good for the Jets. So if you just like put everything you just said, we're pretty good. And number 2, shout out to in the comment section, Knowledge a Jedi. He is the biggest Ruben Bane fan in the world, and he has said F the measurements and all these other things. So we see you out there in the audience. Go ahead, Wudi.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You just hit on a lot of the different positions, but I'm still sticking with the end right now. I'm still here. I'm still here. Right. Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. And we were here, right, talking about Ruben Bane Jr. What about his teammate, Hakeem Mesidor? Because I wasn't actually tracking on stats like that, but someone, was campaigning for him right at 16. And talking about, he had more this, more that. I looked at the numbers, and I'm like, damn, the production. He did have a very productive season. But, of course, when people are, focused on Bane, sometimes Catwoman gets, able to do some things. So it's a situation where he was overlooked, or, what would you say about Mesidor and somebody who, takes a chance on him in the first round of this year's draft?
Yeah, I think that Mesidor, and we're seeing him mocked a lot in like the 20s. I feel like Chicago is like a pretty prevalent one, and there's like some others that are in like I think I've seen him the Chargers at 22 to be like the heir apparent to Khalil Mack, who's only going to be around for one more year to pair with Tuli. I am very like comfortable with a Hakeem Mesidor, if that makes sense, in that valuation, like the late 20s, early 30s. I'm fine with him because I think that he is a kind of just pro pass rusher. I don't think that his ceiling is as high as some of these guys, obviously, because he is 25 years old. He's a little bit of an older prospect. He's been around for a minute. He also has a little bit of durability stuff that you just kind of have to work through. He's been injured a little bit during his career at West Virginia and then at Miami in 2024. So like there's some question marks in terms of like that and upside, I guess, but the kid knows how to play the position, right? Like he's got great hands, got great pass rush plan. So I think that he's going to come in and be able to help you. I would rather personally, though, it's just my opinion. Like I would rather him be picked to a team that I would consider like a contender, right? Like I feel like I've seen him to like New England a lot too at like 31. Again, I think Chicago's an interesting spot for him. A team that can maybe be a little bit more luxurious on the back end of the first round for a guy that does have some holes and maybe has a smaller tract of development and upside, a guy that you just know is going to be ready made, but maybe doesn't have a crazy ceiling. So I like him as a player. Don't love him in like the range of like the mid first round, but me saying that is also me fully understanding that he has a chance to go in that range. I mean, I think Tampa Bay at 15 is a very real possibility for a guy like Hakeem Mesidor. I think 16, if depending on what the Jets, like if the Jets draft Arvell Reese, it's possible that you could double dip in that type of stance because ultimately they're going to play two very different positions, and Arvell Reese, you could argue, should be better off playing stack backer early in his career as he continued to develop his pass rush profile. So I think he's an interesting player, a comfortable player, a player that if you drop onto a winning team, I think can help you. But I don't think I would necessarily want him to go to a team that like he needs to be the guy and he is the number one pass rusher for a team. I think he's more of a solid number 2 for a good football team, if that makes sense.
Again, we're speaking with Ryan Roberts at Rise and Draft, A to Z Sports, baby. But I'm going to pick a different letter of the alphabet, and I'm going to stick here with old Woody here. And I'm going to pull my hair back and say, do you think you know me? Because I'm going with the rated R superstar. I'm staying with the edge. I want to stay with the edge. That's a deep cut reference. Hopefully some people connected some of the dots there. Well placed. Okay. Edge. This is a guy, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if me and Woody have mentioned this name once in months of doing this, but he seems to be a polarizing guy in mock drafts that I'm looking at. What about Keldrick Falk out of Auburn? Where does he sort of stand? It seems like there's varying opinions on him.
Man, I hate how Auburn used him this year. I first and foremost, I don't know if you guys have ever watched a player where you're just like, he's so much better than the situation he's in. They just kind of sabotaged him from the beginning because unfortunately for himself, he's 6'5 plus and 276 pounds, which gives him a lot of versatility. Like he can move around a lot, and that's fortunate. But it's also unfortunate because Auburn didn't allow him to do one thing enough where it's like you need to perfect your craft. He was just kind of the mass, he was a guy that you were trying to just make wear too many hats, where I just wanted him to wear like one or two and get really good at those one or two, because you saw it a lot more in 2024 when he was just playing a lot more stable on the edge. He had like 52 pressures, 7 sacks. Like he had production that year. This year he only has 2 sacks and 4 tackles for loss and like 32 pressures. So your pressure
right.
is...
So let me jump in on this.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful because I want to make sure we get into this. And as you being a draft evaluator, how do you sort of do that in your head that you're like, you said exactly what you just Keldrick Falk. I don't like how he was used this year, but you're an NFL team and now it's projection. You're like, yeah, they used him like crap, but with us, like a guy that comes to mind is I remember a lot of people when the Jets drafted Will McDonald, and what were they saying? Will played like 4-eye or something at Iowa State.
He played 3 down at Iowa State a lot. And
a lot of people are like, oh, that's stupid, and they say whatever they said about it. But like you're saying, but with us, he will do this, and you had to project that. How do you as a draft analyst break down what they were actually asked to do and what you think they would be asked to do in the NFL, and trying to make up in your head what that looks like and trying to evaluate? Because that sounds difficult because you're doing some projecting and then you're just saying like, well, that school is an idiot. And that's not, that sort of conversation comes up every offseason with draft prospects.
Well, I think Will McDonald's a perfect example. You have to be able to isolate the traits that's going to make a guy successful in a specific role. Like you have to isolate it, right? Like when I watch Keldrick Falk, I say the dude's long. The dude is very athletic. I mean, he ran like 4.67 or something like that at his pro day at 276 pounds. So like he has the athletic traits and he's long as hell. So like he's good. I think at worst, he's somewhere around like the Greg Rousseau tier of player. And Greg Rousseau is not a great NFL player, but he's a good NFL player. I mean, he gets like 6 to 8 sacks a year. Like he's a good player and he plays great run defense. And that might be all that Keldrick Falk ever is. But he does have upside to be better than a Greg Rousseau. So we'll see ultimately why. But I do think like that imagination we're talking about, Paul, NFL teams are much more open to Keldrick Falk because I think most of them have watched the same thing that I watch and been like, man, they just did not allow him to eat. Like, you just didn't allow it. And he's also super young. He was a team captain, 20 years old. Like, he still has a huge developmental track to work with, and he has traits. And you always bet on traits on the edge, more often than not. I wasn't evaluating, but I remember when good old Daniil Hunter had 1.5 sacks his last year at LSU, but you're like, but he's a freak and he'll figure it out, right? And I'm not going to declare that Keldrick Faulk's going to be Daniil Hunter, but I'm going to declare that I think he's going to be a better pro than he is an college player. Like I greatly think that. So he's a guy that I think Jets fans should know, just in case, depending on what they do at 2, because he's going to get drafted higher than people think. Like and I'm guilty of this. I've done a lot of mock drafts where it's like 31 to New England is going to take Keldrick Faulk, or like, you know, Chicago at 25 is going to take Keldrick Faulk. I don't think Keldrick Faulk getting out of the top 20. I don't. I think that a team like the Detroit Lions at 17 are an interesting landing spot. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 15 are an interesting landing spot. I think that the 14 to the Baltimore Ravens is an interesting one because he's kind of their style of player that they've always have really liked on the edge. So I don't think he gets out of the top 20. I don't know if the Jets would be a team that would make the most sense in the top 20 at 16, but I do think that he is going to go earlier than I think some people anticipate.
Wow. That you heard it here first. Ryan Roberts looking into that.
But you only heard it if I'm right. You didn't hear it if I'm wrong.
Oh, true. Tentative.
Which by the way, I hope the rules were established at the beginning of this podcast. Ryan, when you nail anything, I am going to scream it from every rooftop on this planet. For instance, I'm going to clip this out. We'll try to get this out this week. Your Chris Bell tick I used in a column because Chris Bell, the wide receiver at Louisville, visited the Jets on a 30 visit, and you had this great analysis of Chris Bell. So I utilized that in the piece. So, you know, I'm going to clip it, and you're right. I'm going to keep screaming that. If you're wrong, whoa, what take? I don't know what you're talking about. So the rules are
unfortunately, the general public, though, only remembers the bad takes, you know, like they only remember the things you miss on. So it's always a funny industry because I'm like, man, I've been right a whole lot, but it's like those couple of times I was, and then people are like, nope, that's what Ryan said. All right, cool. Man, cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, hey, come on now. You know, for years I've been singing the praises. Brock Bowers, okay. We made a graphic for that. Tyler Warren, all right. We made a graphic for Olu Fashanu. Come on, you was out here. Man. Yeah, so and we always singing the wins. We singing the wins, singing the praises. Yes, sir. Do you have anything else with the edge, Mr. BG?
No. Edge, you know, we can he can retire. It's fine. It's over. Yeah.
Okay, all right. He's low key fighting for the tag team championship on AEW, but I won't talk about that. I'm talking about that. We're gonna talk, and I got a question because I feel like Sonny Styles is a name that we've heard a lot. And we've heard the name Caleb Downs. And I feel like, from a media perspective, we're hearing the same thing. This dude's a Hall of Famer. You know, this dude is the best person. I just saw this dude walking an old lady across the street, you know, and then when they actually get on the field, every measurement of the 40, every drill in the combine, they were the best I ever seen. So I would just like the Ryan Roberts scoop, the official between these two guys, like, what is there? Like, are they really just like perfect? Are they just, you know, the next Hall of Fame? Like, who would you say has a higher ceiling? Is Styles to the Jets something that you would, you know, see happening? Or Downs, even though it's a number 2? Like, what do you think about those two guys? Because right now they're acting like those two are like the best thing to ever happen to the earth.
Well, it comes back to our Jeremiah Love conversation the other day, is that, like, it's a weird draft because the non-premium positions that people usually just kind of skate over real quick are the strengths of this class. It's like linebacker, safety, running back. It's like running back's actually not a great class, but it has a really great player in it, right? So, like, that's what we're talking about early in this class. Sonny Styles, I think, is the better of the two prospects, and I think he also has the higher ceiling of the two prospects that you mentioned in Downs and Styles. He doesn't have much of a hole. I mean, he's 6'4 plus. He's 6'5. He was like the craziest measurement that I've seen. In the preseason, scouts had him at 6'4 and 3/8, and then somehow he's 6'5" at the combine. I still don't know how that one happened, but either way, He is 6'5", 240 plus pounds, former safety who can obviously move. He missed one tackle last year, a single tackle, and it happened in the last game of his career at Miami. So like he missed one tackle in the 2025 season. I think he needs to tackle a little bit better. I don't think, or I shouldn't say better. He doesn't miss tackles. I think that he needs to play with a little bit more of a lower base as a tackler. I think he tackles a little high at times. And I also think that he is a guy that just like generally speaking needs to get a little stronger, as a player. But I mean, there's nothing, we talked about the unteachables the other day. I can teach both of those things to Sonny Styles, and you can't teach how athletic that dude is, right? Like he was playing, if you go back to his 2023 film, he was playing mid-hole safety for Ohio State, and now he's a true inside linebacker. So like freak of nature, absolute freak. And he's got good eyes, and he's explosive, and he's got great range, and he understands how to take on blocks. So as he continues to get stronger, I think he's going to be even better in that capacity. So he is one of the easier evaluations that I've ever had at linebacker. Like he is a guy that I look at and just say like that guy is going to be a plus starter in the NFL at worst. And there's a possibility that he's an all-pro almost every season. Like he has that type of upside. So would I consider him at 2? Yeah, I consider it. I would still defer to Arvell Reese personally, like just for me, but yeah, I would consider him. I mean, he'd be on my short list for sure, even though he's a linebacker. Downs is like interesting because even if you're a freak show like Kyle Hamilton, you still fall in the draft as a safety. It just happens every single year. Safeties fall, man. I think it's the Jets' fault, honestly. The Jamal Adams thing was like, man, we're not drafting safeties that high anymore. Like, we're not doing it anymore, So, but I think Downs is he's a boringly good football player is the way I would say it. Like, there's nothing flashy about Caleb Downs. He's not this freaking nature athlete. He's not a guy that's going to make a ton of plays from depth, like playing single high free safety. But as a short zone robber, open field tackler, the kid just doesn't miss. Like he's just consistent, always in the right spot. So I don't think he's going to end up being a Kyle Hamilton, like one of the best players in the NFL and a truly like defensive defining player. But I think he's going to be a very good starter in the NFL, if not a Pro Bowl player. Like he is. And it's funny every year, like there's some guys that are just boringly good and we get tired of talking about them because it's just like, what else are we going to say? He doesn't have a ton of flaws. He's not incredible, doesn't play an exciting game necessarily, but the odds of Caleb Downs not working out are very, very low.
And you can't teach that. The wrestling references continue. We could sort of just bounce around here, Wudi, with our final remaining minutes here with Ryan Roberts. I think this is a position for the Jets that is sneaky, like in your face. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about the draft is like, oh my God, I'm missing a left guard. I need to draft a left guard immediately. Like, we're not drafting these guys and signing them to one-year deals. They're multi-year deals. So teams are always thinking with the foot in the present, foot in the future. Corner comes to me as a need for the Jets. It may surprise Jet fans, like how high potentially a corner goes. My question is, who's the top corner in this draft? Is it Jermod McCoy? Is it Mansour Delane? I've heard other names. Like, who's the number one corner in this class?
A lot of people have Mansour Delane. I'm sticking with Jermod McCoy in this conversation out of Tennessee. And I like Mansour a lot. I would draft Mansour in the top 15, and I would have no like hesitation on it. I think Mansour Delane is a very good player. I think the 2024 film that Jermod McCoy put on at Tennessee was better than what Mansour did in 2025, and that's saying a lot because Mansour was great at LSU in 2025. I look at McCoy, and it did calm my nerves, to be honest with you guys, after not seeing for over a year. It calmed my nerves when I saw him at the Pro Day run 4.38 and do a 38-inch vert and do a 10.7 broad. Like, if he's back and like fully back to that 2024 film where he dominated the SEC at 19 years old, then I'm in. Like, he's J.C. Horn all over again to me. Like, that's what he is. Physical press man corner who beats you up at the line of scrimmage and can run. Like, that plays, man. That plays. So if he's healthy, like he looked at the Pro Day, and that 2024 film is who he is again, but 2 years older and stronger, hopefully, then you have a lockdown, shutdown corner for the foreseeable future. I think that he has upside to be a perennial Pro Bowler, if not an All-Pro. I think, and this is a slight hot take, I guess, because I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to fight against the, I'm not a Twitter doctor. I'm not going to say I know exactly what his long-term is going to look like medically. But if healthy, and again, back to that 2024 film, this is a top 5 player in this class, regardless of positional value. Like Jermad's that good. So if a Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 15, or even a Miami Dolphins at 11, a Dallas Cowboys at 12, a New York Jets, at 16, if they draft Jermad McCoy, I think you're getting a Pro Bowler if he's healthy. Like, I think that he is a stud, and if he played this year just as good as he did in 2024, he would be a lock top 10 pick, and we wouldn't even be talking about him right now in the mid first rounds.
Wow. I like that. I can't lie. I'm one of Brandon Stevens' biggest haters. So we get Jermad McCoy, I'll be pretty hyped. Thinking a little bit further down, the name I always love to mention is Jack Campbell. Because Jack Campbell was a guy who every mock draft I did that year, whatever year it was that he was drafted, he was my second round pick. I was like, yo, we out here, we about to get this in the first.
And then he goes 16th or whatever he goes. Yeah.
I was like, damn. Damn. So right now, with the 33rd pick, 2 names, and I just want to throw both of these names and see, if you think, they could be a Jack Campbell. The 2 names that I consistently pick, Colton Hood, cornerback, and Jake Golday, linebacker. And I'm picking that, 33rd, sometimes 44. They're there depending on what site you're using for the mock. But is there any chance of them, sneaking into that first round?
I think Colton Hood is a decent chance to make in the first round ascension. Yeah, because I think he's just a very clean prospect, even though he's only a redshirt sophomore coming out, because he plays with great press technique. He is a nephew of Roderick Hood, who played in the NFL, and I think that backgrounds of having NFL bloodlines kind of shows up in his game. Like, he's just incredibly patient at the line of scrimmage. And then he went to the combine, ran like 4.44, just kind of checked boxes athletically. And he's a really smart, articulate kid. So I just don't think there's much holes in Colton Hood. He's not the dynamic, change of direction athlete that Jermad is, for instance, right? Which is why we're talking about him being the late first round comparatively to the top of the first round potentially. But he's a good starter, I think, on the NFL level. So if you get him there at 33, great pick. I think that it is very, very solid to play inside and out. But I do think that he has a chance for sure to go in the first round. I just think you could wait on Jake Galday a little bit, like 44, I think, or even potentially a little later. I mean, I know the Jets don't have a 3rd round pick, right? So like you might not be able to make that happen. Maybe if you trade back and then he's more in like the 50 range or something like that. I think that he is a really talented, long athlete that's like super interesting. He's a strange player, though, in the sense of like Cincinnati asked him to play a lot of like overhang, so he's playing more in space than he was playing stacked, which is just kind of unique and different. But I think it's such a deep linebacker class that I would kind of hesitate, just me personally, to draft the guy at 33. I would rather kind of wait at the linebacker spot a little bit, and that, because that's just my preference on like how deep I think the group is. Can I throw one more name out there that I think is like super interesting for you guys?
Sure.
Yeah.
So at 33, I think Chris Johnson from San Diego State, if we're like talking another corner for a second, I am actually getting to the point where I think he could be the 3rd corner off the board after Mansour or Jermad, but like he could be in the 20s or he could go 33. Like, I don't think it's necessary he's for sure going to be a first round pick, but I put that, it's funny. Like I have a good relationship with Jordan Reed from ESPN.
I love Jordan. Yeah.
Oh, Jordan's great. And I put out that take in the universe like a few days ago, and then Jordan like backed it up today. And I was like, yeah, man. Like he said the same thing. He's like, I think Chris Johnson could be CB3 because he just checks every box, man. Like multi-year starter, great production in 2025 for San Diego State, diverse system he's coming from. The best, and I don't say this lightly because I've been to a lot of combines at this point and done a million interviews, the most well-spoken defensive back that I've ever heard talk football. Like, just incredibly articulate, and he's got great character. And then he went to the combine, and some people had, like, athleticism questions a little bit in terms of long speed, and he runs 4.4 flat. And you're like, all right, I don't know exactly what there isn't to like about Chris Johnson anymore. Like, he's just really, really good. So that might be another guy, if you're just talking cornerback at 33, that might possibly be there as, like, an interesting guy.
So what is it? Like, why isn't Why aren't more people talking about him? What do you say?
It's the G5 stigma, right? It's like he's a San Diego State guy. He didn't play at LSU. He didn't play at Tennessee. He didn't play at Tennessee again, right? With like a Colton Hood. So like you didn't see him against power 4 guys every single week. But I think that he's just checked so many boxes that I just don't care, because I think that he also had a couple of his best games against the better competition he played. And then also he went to the Senior Bowl, had a good solid week there, went to the Combine, showed out that he is a legitimately very good athlete for the quarterback position. So I just don't care about that G5 stigma anymore, because I've seen him in the same spot at guys like Colton Hood and other guys where I'm just like, he clearly deserves to be there, clearly can hang.
Damn. Well, you heard it here first. I can't wait. I can't tentative, of course, but I think you've heard it. I think we can say that we've heard some incredible nuggets, incredible people to follow in this draft. And you talked about belonging here, Ryan. You anytime you want, this is your spot right here. Okay, you belong here. All right. You got a place on the show whenever you want it, my guy.
Home is where the heart is, Ryan. Home is where the heart is.
Man. That's it. No, I appreciate you guys. I will definitely take you up on that at some time before the draft, and then after the draft, you want to recap it. I'm here for it. I appreciate you guys for being flexible with scheduling and everything as well. It is very appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And of course, before we let you go, let the people know. Come on now. They plugging in. They seeing Ryan Roberts tweet. They like, damn, this guy got a lot of info. Where can we get more info? Let them know.
Yeah, I'll have a couple intel pieces over at A to Z Sports kind of leading up to the draft. I'll do a couple final mock drafts, more predictive nature than like me as the GM, because nobody gives a shit. Or I don't know if I curse on this podcast.
It's the internet. You can say whatever the fuck you want.
No, some people don't care about what I think a team should do anymore. Like they just care about what their team is going to do, right? So we'll do some more predictive stuff, big boards, position rankings, all that type of stuff. So A to Z Sports at Rise and Draft if you want to follow me on Twitter. And then if you want to go over after the show, make sure you watch every single video that these guys put out. But if you want to go over to Best Pod Available on YouTube, we have a lot of plans down the stretch. And then obviously reacting to, we're not doing a live show, but we'll have a ton of videos coming at you guys in terms of recapping some of the more controversial or just good picks in the draft. So Best Pod Available on YouTube. We started a couple months ago. It's gotten good reviews so far, and we hope that it continues to grow.
And don't forget, he had that $500,000, baby. He was talking about it on Tuesday. So the business is good. And shout out to all the fans that tuned in for this, Ryan, dedicating it a whole week to Boy Green Meets Wudi. So appreciate you, buddy. And we'll do this again soon.
I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
All right, there you go. Peeps, we'll see you next time on Tuesday.